Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire.
What does asbestos management mean to you?
I used to really struggle with the asbestos management at my site, but now it's a breeze.
It used to be really expensive. I was paying loads, but now I've got my asbestos power team in place. It's so much easier.
Asbestos can be a pain in the arse if not handled right.
We had to stop the job because asbestos was discovered. Now we don't have that problem.
Asbestos management is easier than you think. Asbestos management. Be proactive, not reactive. Think about asbestos first, not last.
And now your hosts, best-selling authors and asbestos experts, Ian Stone and Neil Munro.
Hi, welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire. My name's Neil Munro.
I'm Ian Stone.
Okay, so today is a little bit different. I'm going to interview Ian, just in and around asbestos. So I've got a list of questions that I'm going to talk through. It's going to be a little bit informal, a little bit different, and I hope you enjoy it. So, starting with Ian.
Hell of an interview.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and sort of where you're from.
Okay, so obviously Ian Stone. I've been in the asbestos industry for about 17 years. I started back in 2002, it was.
Long time then.
Just a bit, yeah. So I started as a trainee. Before I got into the industry, I had all sorts of different jobs over the years. Worked in construction. Directly before I came to the asbestos industry, I worked at a solicitor's. So again, very different to what I now do.
So it was a bit of an office job.
Yeah, it was. It was completely desk bound. Never left the office 9 to 5. I mean, I know that's some people's dreams, but I got to the point in my life where I got bored with that. I got fed up with it, doing the same things again and again. The solicitors. Yeah, it was just a bit mundane. So,
and how old were you then? Let's give that away.
Yeah, so I was 57 then. No, I think I was 22 when I joined the industry.
Okay.
So yeah, and I was looking about for different jobs that kind of tickled my fancy, and I saw a trainee asbestos consultant position come up in the local newspaper.
What attracted you to that?
It was the total opposite to what I was doing at the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't desk job. It was out and about.
Do you remember what the advert said?
No, it was just trainee asbestos consultant position. And it mentioned about going out on site, doing surveys, the scientific tests in there. I mean, it really did tickle me. And I thought, oh, fancy having a go at that. Actually, before I did, 6 months before I came to the industry, I saw the advert. And the day before I was due to actually go for the job interview, I had a motorbike accident. I'll say 6 months, it was a year before. And so my then girlfriend at the time, I got her to phone up and say to the company, I'm sorry, I can't come along because I'm in hospital.
Right.
I did a proper job. I've fractured bones. I've got plates and pins in my wrist now. So I did a really good, proper job of a motorbike accident.
Messed yourself up.
I did indeed. Hell of a scar on my arm. But yeah, so that happened. And I was still kind of conscious that I had this job interview. So she rang up and sort of said, oh, Ian can't come along because he had this bike accident. And then, about a year later, after I'd fully recovered, I'd gone back to work at the solicitors. And I was at the same point of, right, I'm bored with this.
Yeah.
I'm going to start looking again. And that's when I opened the paper and it was the same job advert.
Okay. So it was meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. It was meant to be. Contacted them, said, don't know if you remember me. I was due to come for an interview. They did remember me and then got invited in for the interview. Met the MD, sat down, went through all sorts, had a good conversation about the industry, what I can expect, the overall kind of sentiments behind it. Because before starting, I didn't know anything about asbestos.
Yeah. Did you know what asbestos was?
I was asked that in the interview, and I think my answer was something like, well, I don't know much. I know it's a mineral and I know it kills you.
Yeah. That was the research that you'd done for the job sort of thing, was it? Or did you know beforehand?
That was just kind of a bit of knowledge that I had. I mean, like I say, I worked in construction previous, so that's where it come from. But yeah, the interview, we went through the bulk analysis and had a look at the bulks in the lab and did a colour blindness test and stuff like that. And right at that point, I was sold. I wanted to be involved with the industry and it sounded really good.
Okay. So would you say that having a bit of a construction background was good? Do you think that helped?
It definitely helped me.
It's a requirement that you've got to have that bit of background?
I wouldn't say it's a requirement.
No.
I mean, some of the guys that work for us don't have that background. However, what I've found over the years is that the people that do have that construction background tend to know a little bit more about how buildings are put together. And essentially, when we're surveying for asbestos, you kind of need that knowledge to think, well, could there be fire battening or fireproofing in this location, that kind of stuff.
Sort of know how buildings are put together does help a little bit.
It does indeed.
With finding stuff.
Yeah. I mean, at the time when I joined, there was a lot of people in the industry that had come from university backgrounds.
Yeah.
Environmental science was, I remember a big one. Everybody had the environmental science degree. And again, I mean, that helped them in different ways. But me not coming from a degree background, I didn't need it.
Yeah, University of Life background.
University of Life, that's the one.
Cool. So that's how you kind of got into it. And then how's it sort of progressed from that, basically going from zero knowledge pretty much to where you are today? And
I basically, like I say, started as a trainee, started out on site learning analytical first.
Yeah.
Then I went on to surveying. As a follow-on / kind of involved with the surveying, I started learning bulks at the same time. And a lot of it, I kind of pushed myself to ask for advice and help. And from the senior guys, like, can you show me how to do this? And once they'd show me how to do bulks, I was away and I'd practice evenings, weekends, stuff like that.
Yeah, just to get on.
Yeah, just to get on, really.
Because that's quite different to the way that companies run today, isn't it?
It is massively. I mean, nowadays, there's a lot of firms out there that will just train analysts to be analysts and surveyors just to be surveyors. And as a business, I think of getting people out on the ground, it's easier, definitely easier, because you've only got to think about getting them trained in one subject. So, I mean, to become a competent analyst, you're looking at probably 6 months, and then you can be out and about, putting pumps out, not very big jobs, not very complicated jobs, probably not doing clearances by then, or if you are doing clearances, really kind of small, easy ones. And surveying takes, I mean, anywhere from 6 to 12 months for a similar kind of thing. But then you kind of get pigeonholed in that. And that's not good as an overall thing, because having done everything, and each time I've added another element on, like the pennies drop that little bit more with the whole thing. So starting off on analytical, you get to see asbestos and you know where it is and all the rest of it, and removal and stuff like that. But then when you start surveying, you start looking out for the stuff that you've seen when you've been doing analytical, and you'll look for things more with an analyst kind of eye. So you kind of start doing,
after it's been removed, and if it hasn't been removed correctly, you know where to sort of find it in those little places.
Like a lot of the jobs that we did in the early days, and we still do now, going back and rectifying previous strips, previous removal jobs. So that having that analytical eye straight away of, right, these are the really tiny fragments that we're looking for.
Yeah.
When I went into surveying, helped me massively.
Yeah, the hard bits that are to remove.
Yes.
And the hard bits that are always left over, you know where to look for it.
And then, like I say, then I went on to doing bulks as well. And having done the bulks and looking at samples a lot more, again, as a surveyor, being on site, it kind of gave me the knowledge and the confidence to look at certain samples and assess and go, do you know what? I really do think this is asbestos. So I am going to do something about it, rather than just sampling stuff.
And not knowing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It kind of, all that knowledge kind of went into the pot and just helped each other. And then that kind of culminated from doing all that, getting my CCP. That was great early on in my career. It was kind of nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember sitting there and having the hour-long interview and thinking, shit, what are they going to ask me? And they were bastards as well, because they'd ask you a question and then you start answering it. And as soon as you get into your flow thinking, right, I've got this one down, I was about 15 seconds in. They go, right, okay, thanks. I just want to ask you about something completely different. God, mine was like banging backwards, forwards all over.
Yeah, sort of cut your dead if they know you got it, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was funny at the time. My boss went for the CCP as well at the same time. He actually failed and I passed as a trainee, and he'd been in the industry a lot longer. So he was pissed off with that and obviously was upset by that. But I quite like that. I appreciated that one.
So was that the one company that you were at?
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Kind of later on, I went up to Asbestos Removal Company.
Right, okay, so you went over to...
Yeah, the dark side. Went to the dark side and the removal side.
And how did you find that?
It was good. I enjoyed it. It's different. Again, that knowledge that I learned from doing that process has been invaluable in my career. So I helped the company with sort of non-licensed stuff at the beginning, helped them get the 1 year license and then 3 year license later on. That was good, but I'll be honest, I never really enjoyed the removal side as much as the consultancy side.
Okay, what was that then?
It's just different. So you're dealing with different people, different employees.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Some are harder to manage than others.
Sure. So a different sort of clientele from an employee
Yeah, from employee point of view, but also just like the actual day-to-day job of, with the asbestos removal, it was kind of straightforward. You get given a report, you look at the report, the client says, I want this gone, or I want this painted, or whatever. And then you put everything together, so it's all done, completed safely. Whereas the consultancy side, yes, you've got the information, but then I feel like you're really helping clients kind of steer them in the right direction of what's good for them in the here and now, but also the forward planning and looking at what's going to be good for them in the future.
Problem solving, planning and advising and sort of, talking them through their issues and stuff like that.
A lot of the stuff was on a bigger scale. We'd have asbestos removal at a site, and yes, there'd be like multiple sites all over the country, but the asbestos consultancy side, you're looking at stuff like from the global kind of element, thinking about the entire country and the 1,000 stores that they had, and how this policy that you're putting together with the client, how that's going to affect them overall. I got more of a kick out of that, the consultancy side.
Yeah.
So that's why I came back into industry for a little while. But then after that, I got bored, which I think has been a recurrent theme for me. I always get bored. That's why I've enjoyed doing all the different elements.
Yes, always pushing yourself through.
Yeah, and then that's when I went to ATAC, the Asbestos Testing and Consultancy Association.
Okay, and what do they do?
So ATAC, I mean, some people have heard of ARCA, but not necessarily ATAC.
Yeah.
So ATAC and ARCA are one trade association for all intents and purposes. ARCA is the trade association for asbestos removal contractors, and ATAC is the trade association for consultancies.
Okay.
And went there as a membership manager. And up until that point, they'd had I think, part-time membership manager. They'd never had a full-time person in the role to really kind of grab it bull by the horns.
Which was bigger? Was it the removal side was bigger?
Yeah, the removal side.
Parent company, was it?
Yeah, exactly. They're like sister companies as such within the same arena, But yeah, ARCA was the bigger one. ARCA was the one that first started. The removal contractor side was bigger, and ATAC had kind of smaller membership. But because nobody had ever spearheaded doing lots of stuff for the members, it kind of got left by the wayside a little bit. It hadn't grown as much as the removal side.
Sure.
So like when I started, the removal contractor side, like it has been for years, have been doing training for their guys and the industry guys for years. But the ATAC side had never developed anything like that.
Oh, right, okay.
So that was a big thing that I wanted to help with. They'd started looking into what we could do with regards to examinations and training courses and things like that. And when I was there for 3 years, and I helped develop the Royal Society for Public Health, the RSPH, asbestos qualifications. So
what was in place before then? The RSPHs.
So all there was when I went to the trade association, all there was in the industry was the BOHS qualifications, the P-certs, 401, 402, 403, etc. But again, the reason why we kind of looked at it, and there was a need from my members at the time, was the turnaround times for certificates and things like that was a lot longer than what the industry wanted. Yeah. And as membership manager, I listened to the members, and I helped put stuff in place to help solve that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I remember waiting long times for some of my certs. It was often months, wasn't it? As opposed to what it is now. So I think it's
a couple of weeks. Yeah, a couple of weeks, something like that.
So we can thank you, the industry, for that improvement.
But, it wasn't me alone. I mean, Dr. Richard Burton, I worked a lot with him at the RSPH and the membership.
ATAC.
Yeah, the membership managers at ATAC, everybody around the table, and ARCA's governing council, everybody kind of, after we started putting it together, everybody came in and could see that the industry wanted it and it needed it, and we kind of all come together to sort the qualifications out, put them together and get them out there. So
that's massive, really, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it was good. I was really proud of that.
Yeah, it should be.
But again, sort of after 3 years, I kind of put those in place, and when I left, I think the surveying one was in place, the analytical one was in place, the project manager one was in place, and then the next ones on the list was like the bulk analysis one we'd started to put together. But after I'd done kind of 3, I could see the pattern and how it worked.
Yeah, put the system in place.
Yeah, and again, I just got a little bit bored and wanted to step back out into industry. And yeah, here I am now. Been at Acorn, I think 6 years, something like that. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, my route from...
Yeah. So tell us about what do you do now then at Acorn?
So currently I'm assisting with the operations department and the sales department, helping out, just essentially running the business, running the guys, making sure that we are hitting our clients' KPIs, making sure that the guys have got everything they need to complete everything on site.
Yeah.
I work quite closely with Paul as well in the technical department to make sure that audits are carried out on our guys regularly. We're, again, hitting everything that we need to for UCAS and just for self-assurance that we're doing everything we should be.
Cool. Nice. So, obviously, The question that we usually ask our interviewers
Yes.
is, why did you agree to talk about asbestos? But obviously, you've got a vested interest in obviously talking about that. So is there anything you want to sort of add to that? And about, a lot of people, our viewers, think it's a taboo subject.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that.
No, I do. I mean, it is still considered a taboo subject. I mean,
Yeah.
It's a bit of a loaded question because it is a taboo subject. So it is intriguing to find out why the different people that we do interview and the people we chat to have got the opinion that they can speak about it. Because from me being in the industry, I know we can speak about it and it's fine. As long as everybody's got everything in place and people are doing the right thing, it's not an issue. It should be treated the same as anything else. It's an open subject. Yeah, we've been using asbestos in buildings for years. Yeah, asbestos kills you. However, if you've got everything in place and everything's right, then it's safe and it's fine. And also, I feel it should be more open, less of a taboo subject, because if it was, people would be less scared of it. It wouldn't be as so emotive.
More people would be aware.
More people would be aware, and also more people would then be proactive about getting stuff sorted.
So, what's the worst thing you've ever seen with regards to asbestos? If you can cast your mind.
I've seen lots.
Yeah. What sort of stands out?
The one that stands out was a school many years ago. I got called out by one of the teachers, rang up. They'd been having some asbestos removal works completed, and she had some concerns over the contractors and their removal methods and just the kind of general ongoings. And it was only down the road from us. So I said, no problem, look, I'll pop out. So I met them, had a walk around the site, and instantly I was kind of taken aback. From the first room that I went to, I was taken aback at what I saw. And there was just kind of AIB debris, dust, all sorts everywhere.
Right.
And at this point, I didn't know how bad it was.
How big was this school?
It was big. I mean, I don't know how many pupils were there, but it was a big, I think it was a secondary school. Yeah, so probably 1,000 pupils, if not more. It was a biggie.
Were the pupils there?
No, the pupils weren't there at the time. I think it was summer holidays.
Okay.
So contractors are in doing works at the quiet time, thank God. And yeah, so I kind of saw that and I said to her, well, we've definitely got an issue.
Yep.
Let's just have a quick look around. So I had a quick skirt around a few more rooms. And at that point, I was like, right, I've seen enough. Anybody that's in this school, we need to get them out. It was just rife. Later on, after we surveyed and we identified everything, there was asbestos in the skip outside that had been dragged. Some asbestos insulating board had been cut with a skill saw. And there was it looked like talcum powder on the floor. It was that kind of sword.
Yeah.
And essentially throughout the school, it was like that.
Wow. So massive disturbance and
huge.
Yeah.
The guys that were completing those works would have got big
exposures.
Big exposures, definitely.
Wow.
That was crazy. That was the worst.
So what happened with that? Do you know? Or
yeah, we were involved with kind of the clean-up and the clean-up operation and getting it all back to working. What
sort of extent did they have to go to on that?
A lot of things had to be disposed of.
Yeah,
decontamination. Essentially, the school was turned into an asbestos enclosure. Negative pressure units put on the back of the school.
Yeah.
Airlocks and bag locks put on the front of the school. And then the school was cleaned.
Right.
So, there was all sorts that went on. Kids' coursework, because kids' coursework for the A-levels were coming up. That had to be photocopied and stuff like that. It was crackers, the amount of stuff we had to do and the things we had to get rid of.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so if I could ask you, what's the strangest asbestos you've ever seen? Bit of a random question.
It is. It's
the strangest one. Odd. What sort of stands out?
I don't know. Things I've seen it used in all sorts of places over the years.
Yeah.
And it just baffles me. A simple one. ARB packers under windowsills.
Yeah.
That's baffled me for years.
Right, okay. Why bother?
Yeah, chip is that it's their job to use wood and they put a wooden windowsill in. They then pack it out with asbestos insulating board. And the thing is, it was like done again and again and again.
Yeah.
And it was like as if that became the norm and that was the product to use. I don't know.
Definitely. Countless asbestos surveys that I've carried out, and one of the things you expect the unexpected, and the packers and stuff like that are always unexpected, and it's really hard to find those ones, isn't it?
It is.
Sometimes, it could be under one windowsill, couldn't it, as opposed to all of them.
Again, on floor joists, I've seen it. You've got big timber floor joists. One end's been packed out with asbestos insulating board. I don't know why they didn't just use a bit of wood. Because it was the product that they were using.
Yeah, I suppose it was a good idea.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. A bit lying about, I suppose they'd had some on a door or whatever and chopped it off. But yeah, just stuff like that generally. It's always perplexed me of how we got to that point to use it.
Right, okay, cool. So what's the best, I say asbestos thing, but what sort of stands out if you look over your career? What sort of stands out as a moment where you think, you know what, that was a good moment. That was either, getting that in place was a good thing, or, what sort of stands out as a good thing?
I've got one. So there was a client that we were working with a couple of years ago, and they had sprayed asbestos on their beams. So when you first get the call of, can you come and just see if what we're doing is all right and all the rest of it? Yeah, what's the rundown? They say we've got sprayed asbestos. It's like, oh my word, like what am I going to find here?
The worst.
Yeah, went along and they kind of invited me in as a bit of a health check, really, of what they were doing. Went to have a look through documentation, went and had a look at the beams, and what they'd done on the beams was fantastic. They were up on like these high-level grids because people needed to work up and around them. But what they'd done, instead of just encapsulating it with wrapping it in cloth and then encapsulating it with ET150, they'd also overclad them with like next-level industrial metal. All the joints were riveted. Yeah, it was impressive.
Expensive.
It must have been expensive, exactly. And I mean, just to see that, they'd obviously taken on board the risk from the asbestos spray on the beams, and they went all out to make sure that it was safe, which was fantastic.
Wow. So do you think it would have been more expensive to remove it? Because that sounds really expensive to me.
Yeah, I think it probably would have,
Yeah.
because of generally, for stuff like that, when we remove asbestos, something's got to be put back in its place. I think that's why they perhaps took that view of, right, well, it's here, it's doing its job, it's okay, but let's just make it safe for us to work in and around it.
Cool. So the asbestos knowledge empire, the question that kind of sums up the theme of the actual podcast is a question. So what does asbestos management mean to you?
So asbestos management to me, it's life or death.
Okay.
That's what it comes down to as far as I'm concerned. If asbestos isn't managed properly, then people die from it. People have been dying for years. I've met quite a few people that have died from asbestos diseases, and it didn't need to happen, and it doesn't need to happen. And that's the long and short of it for me. If asbestos is managed properly, then we can have it in our buildings and we can be safe around it and we can treat it properly. And that's what I just wish more people would understand about asbestos management, is that it's not a taboo subject. It can be something that we fix and work on together.
Yeah. So not ignored or...
Exactly that, yeah.
Yeah. Ooh. And is it a ball ache?
Ooh, it's more of a ball ache if you don't do anything. And that's what we find on day to day. If a client comes to us and says, I've got this project coming up, can you help me with it? It all kind of slots in and everything follows suit all nicely because it's all been thought of. The money for the budget has been put together. What I find is the issue when people come to you either last minute and say, I've got a project starting next week, can we have a survey? Or even worse than that, we started a project, we think we've discovered asbestos.
Yeah, because that's when it really goes wrong sometimes.
Definitely, it does. That's the worst end of the scale.
Yeah, definitely. So is there anything that you would change regards to asbestos management, regulation, or just industry as a whole? There's sort of like things that bug you about it that you wish that you could sort out.
So regulation-wise, we've got everything in place, like in there is what we can work to. It's the actual implementation of those regs and checking people are actually complying with those regulations. Reg 4 came out 2002, implemented in 2004. And yet, as a business now, in 2019, we're doing asbestos management surveys for businesses that have never heard about asbestos, never heard of the regulations or anything. That's one thing. I mean, HC did do a hidden killer campaign, which I'm sure has helped countless lives.
Yeah, that was kind of focused at more trades.
It was,
wasn't it?
Not the actual duty holder.
Yeah.
So I think a big push on that side would help everyone.
Yeah.
In the long run, definitely.
Yeah.
And as an industry, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, probably saying it because that's the route I went down, but I kind of wish the industry as a whole stayed with the everybody should be a consultant, a fully rounded consultant out there in the field, rather than of going down the single route analyst, surveyor kind of thing, because like I said, I feel that being fully rounded, your knowledge is better, so that only gives clients better information.
Yeah. So do you think that if you haven't had that rounded education experience, that you'll do less quality?
100%. I'm sure you would do the job that you're asked and the job that you're trained for, but it's about the bigger picture sometimes, and you only get that if you have done the other elements. I do feel the industry has been watered down a little bit by
cheap,
yeah.
Cheap.
Exactly. Oh, well, it's cheaper if we only get analysts in.
Yeah.
It's cheaper if we only do this. You get what you pay for at the end of the day. Yeah, it is longer and it is a harder route to use people and get people trained to the appropriate level as employees. I mean, we take time and effort. Some of our guys have said, no, I only want to be a surveyor.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But then we've kind of tried to give them more knowledge and information as well, because we have put them through the duty holders courses and stuff like that. So even if they don't want to get involved in the analytical side, we've at least
expanding their knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as an industry overall, that's where we've kind of gone wrong. It feels like it's been watered down quite a lot for me.
Yeah, awesome. So final question. What's your one bit of advice you'd give anyone with regards to asbestos? What's that golden nugget that you would say to anyone about asbestos?
Well, I mean, to coin our own phrase, asbestos first, not last, that's kind of the biggie. And what I mean by that, in its most basic form, is get a survey done. No matter what you're having done, whether you're in your building using it day to day, get a survey done. If you're going to be doing a refurb work, get a survey done. Yeah. Because that's kind of the starting point to get the knowledge together to then do something about the asbestos. Because without knowing it's there, you can't deal with it. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah. If you always did, if you took that, as anything you do within any building, any property, any works, if you thought about asbestos first, it would solve so many problems or stop so many issues happening, wouldn't it?
Definitely,
yeah. Well, thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you.
You enjoyed your interview?
I think that was all right. That was good.
Good. Okay, well, that's it from us. And remember, asbestos first, not last.